sponge.
Now, the end result was that the teacher lost, but in winning a battle, religious fundamentalists ended up losing the war for public opinion. In much the same way, by the time he died in 1882, such was Darwin's reputation that he was given a state funeral by the British government, even though in 1859 churchmen had responded to his ideas with horror. Can faith and science be reconciled? Using Darwin and his ideas as an example, it's interesting to see some responses. As we saw with the Scopes trial, the response of some fundamentalist Christians has been to oppose Darwinism as contrary to a literal reading of the Bible. More recently, other fundamentalist Christians have tried to fight science with their own interpretation of things like what scientists have found out, like fossils, by proposing something they call intelligent design. And instead of banning Darwin outright, fundamentalists have modified their campaign to insist on the reasonable assumption they demand of equal time for their theory with that of Darwin's. Now, this has been mocked by some scientists and advocates of Darwin's who launched a campaign to then require school boards, if they teach intelligent design, to teach about the great spaghetti monster too. Now, other religious groups have attempted a more nuanced position. For example, the Catholic Church's views have themselves evolved. In the 1950s, Pope Pius XII said that evolution per se could be studied so long as it was seen as only a theory and far from proven fact. By the pontificates of Pope John Paul II and the present Pope, Benedict XVI, who sponsored a recent Vatican summit between churchmen and scientists to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Darwin's Origin of the Species, Catholic clergy could make statements like this. Watch.
From the perspective of Christian theology, biological evolution and creation are by no means mutually exclusive. If we talk about evolution in a broad sense, not as an evolutionary mechanism, but as a process of organization whereby human life is formed, then at its very root, evolution is the way in which God creates.
Now, what about scientists? One exponent of Darwin, the late scientist Stephen Jay Gould, argued that they could. Now, I never tire of asking people to read Stephen Jay Gould's essay, Non-Overlapping Magisteria, in which he argues religion and science deal with things that are really separate departments in our lives. Let me read a portion of what he says. The magisterium of science covers the empirical realm. What is the universe made of? Fact. And why does it work this way? Theory. The magisterium of religion, on the other hand, extends over questions of ultimate meaning and moral value. These two magisteria do not overlap, nor do they encompass all inquiry. Consider, for example, the magisterium of art and the meaning of beauty. To cite the old cliches, science gets the age of rocks and religion the rock of ages. Science studies how the heavens go, religion how to go to heaven. Now, an interesting critique of this point of view, from the point of view of those interested in actually reconciling science with religion, is in another essay, or an interview actually, A Separate Piece, Stephen Jay Gould and the Limits of Tolerance. In it, Michael Ruse, by way of Ian Barbour, says that there are three broad categories in the science-religion divide. The first is that there are those who think that science and religion are ever at war. So the Darwinist Richard Dawkins, for example, and numerous fundamental Christians are perennially antagonistic towards each other. Second is that in the second camp are those who think that science and religion speak entirely different languages, and they therefore cannot come into conflict. And this is where Stephen Jay Gould situated himself, for example. Now, in the third category, we find those who think that even though science and religion do not necessarily speak the same language, they have overlapping domains of interest, and these respective interests and claims can, in some sense, be reconciled. So let me ask you, in which category do you fall? Now, as you answer that, let me quote Frank Cottrell Boyce, scriptwriter of a TV movie titled God on Trial. Now, Boyce is a practicing Catholic and wrote that reading the Bible actually challenged his faith more than reading Darwin. He wrote, I thought my faith was invulnerable. I've been through family illnesses. I've witnessed cruelty. I read Darwin all the time and find it feeds my faith. Richard Dawkins, on the other hand, makes me want to pray, the same as Homer Simpson makes me want to exercise, for fear that I too will end up like him, a whining pub bore. The first real challenge to my faith came from reading the scriptures. It may seem deliciously ironic to you, but for me it was a time of a permanent headache and no sleep. So, when we return, Darwinism and the 21st century, a discussion with our panel.
Books featured by The Explainer are available on shelves or on order at a different bookstore.
Welcome back. In the previous gap, we asked you to situate yourself between the 3 points of view. So, refreshing what they are. The first is that science and religion must necessarily clash. The second is that they speak 2 separate languages, so they don't overlap or come into any conflict. The third is that even if maybe they do speak 2 separate languages, but there will be an overlap, but that it can be reconciled. So let me start by asking our panel where they stand on these 3 points of view.
You're asking me?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm definitely Dawkinsian. I think that they are incompatible. Religion and science represent completely different points of view about the origins of the universe, the nature of man, the nature of life. But I'd like to say that, first of all, Darwinism is the most profound scientific idea. It's the most powerful idea in science. I will say only that there's already been a white flag of surrender from the Catholic Church last week, when they said there is no doctrinal problem with Darwinism on the part of the Catholic Church.
But that's an interesting term you use, surrender, because again, it implies a sort of clash of wills in which
he's
one
on the
will
first.
be defeated. So he's definitely in the first. And
Yes,
where are you,
definitely.
Gabby? Where are you?
I think people believe science because science explains many things with fact, with bordered on research, etc. But people believe religion by habit, or that it has worked for them, or you believe religion because you chose it. Those are the lucky believers of religion. I'm on the third. No one has ever asked me this before, of course. But now I have to think about it in 1 minute. I think I'm on the third because they do need to explain certain things. There are overlaps. For example, the theory of creation and etc. Theory of man and woman choosing each other, etc. Those are the choices both science and religion try to explain, but they do not encompass everything. They don't clash as a whole. Does that make sense? And I do think that at some point we can make some sense into the disparity of both.
Okay, and here's the question.
Okay, where are you?
Well, I am with the third group where there's an overlap between science and religion. And I believe that that has been consistently the position of the Catholic Church. So I disagree very much with our first panelist.
I will concede. I will
Okay,
concede. something. I will concede
just for
something.
clarification to where I stand, I'm in the second camp, which is that they speak 2 entirely different languages, and there's no point in trying to reconcile the 2. Yes, because one is concerned with provable, repeatable explanations of physical phenomena.
So
I'm sure you'll dispute me this on the definition of science. While essentially religion asks us to surrender
absolutely
to things that we will never see and cannot be proven.
Manolo, there are 2
physically.
aspects of religion: theology and morality. Okay, the overlap, and I agree with the father on this, is really on the matter of morality, not on theology. Theology, we completely reject all the theologies because they contradict each other. All of the people who are believers, all believers are actually atheists.
He's speaking from the point of view of as a scientist.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
All believers are actually atheists with respect to all other religions.
No,
Atheists only believe in one less God than believers. All believers are atheists with respect to all other religions. You don't believe in Hindu,
Okay, I'd like
Shiva,
to
or
say
anything.
something.
Okay, Father,
I'd like to say
let's give
something
the good
along
Father
that
a chance
line.
to respond.
Theology for us is a science.
Yes.
Okay? It's something systematic. Okay? And the beautiful thing, as far as I'm concerned, is that here in the Philippines, our Bible study has been guided by people who have studied at the Pontifical Biblical Institute or at the École Biblique, where you had the people who are the leaders in scientific biblical exegesis.
Let's just
That's
explain the point of Father briefly here, which is that, for example, they have taken into account archaeological findings about
Yes.
sacred texts,
Yes.
the study of the linguistic
Of the
influences.
creation myths
Yeah.
and all those things. Okay, so we are fortunate. I underline that in the Philippines. From 1900 onwards, our professors of scripture in the Philippines have all trained in these highly respected institutes of learning. So I don't think anyone could say, well, my university is great, your university is no good at all. It is. These are universities.
I'm quoting the Pope.
No,
He's the Pope.
these are
saying it.
universities that are at the same level.
But
at
Father,
whatever